Taylor Moton is staying home in Carolina, and Adam Thielen may be going back to his home in Minnesota. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because beginning on September 3rd, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is back throughout the entirety of the regular season and the playoffs here on Locked On Panthers. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for the weekly Wednesday mailbag starting on September 3rd, heading into that week one matchup down in Jacksonville. We have an emergency episode because the Panthers are making moves, making news on this Friday afternoon/morning as Taylor Moton has signed an extension to stay in Carolina. And Adam Thielen, his old team, is calling Carolina and asking, what's it going to take to get Adam back home here in Minnesota? We'll talk about that situation a little bit later on here on the show, but let's go ahead and start off by talking about the biggest news of the day, and that is that Taylor Moton, T-Mo, is going to stay here in Carolina. We've talked about this all offseason long, what was going to happen with both him and Ike Ekwonu. Ike in a position where potentially he could get a contract extension after having his fifth-year option exercise back in the spring. Taylor Moton in a position of, will he or won't he be a Carolina Panther again in 2026? And you look at Taylor Moton, he has been the beacon of consistency here in Carolina. He has played in 129 games dating back to 2017 when he came to Carolina. He has started 113 of those games across his 8 seasons as a Panther, and he has only missed 3 games in his career as a Panther. If you go back just to the Iron Man streak, he had not missed an offensive snap, y'all. It's not just he wasn't missing games, he wasn't missing plays. In 76 straight contests, he did not miss a snap until week 5 last year in Chicago, where he suffered that elbow injury and then missed 3 games that season. The only time that he's missed time at all. They have, of course, tried to manage him load management wise throughout training camp this year, but going back to last season, there was a little bit of concerns about his knee. But when you look out, Taylor Moton out there on the field on Sundays, occasionally on Thursdays, sometimes on Mondays, and on Saturdays as well, he is a guy who's reliable. Gave up 1 sack last year. 1 sack. He has been the only reliable piece on the Panthers offensive line throughout the course of his 8 seasons here in Carolina. And now when looking at where the offensive line is now, it's great that he's still here anchoring the right side and is somebody who's going to be back again in Carolina because he has signed a 2-year, $44 million deal with $40 million guaranteed, that being first reported by Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. And I'm so happy for T-Mo. I really am. The guy was due to make $17.5 million this year. We have talked about the $31.3 million cap hit and whether Carolina was going to sit on that if they could make the moves they needed to make this past offseason, with Taylor Moton playing with the highest salary cap on the team, the highest cap hit on the team. And that is because ever since he signed his initial extension back in the summer of 2022, there has been a restructure every single year after that. And that led to the point where T-Mo was on this massive cap hit heading into the year, and that Carolina felt like they could sit on it. They were able to bring in Turk Wharton and Bobby Brown III and add to the offense as well this offseason, despite the fact that Taylor was set to play on this massive cap hit. And now with this extension, it potentially, looking at overthecap.com, they have not updated their website. it can potentially open up nearly $13 million for Carolina this season heading into the regular season in 2025, which would give them about $33 million of salary cap space to mess around with in season and carry over really to 2026, where there are decisions to be made about a quarterback potentially, the other tackle on the roster, and some other players also here in Carolina. So again, happy that this worked out for him. Let's go back to the end of July. It was, I think, day 6 of training camp, and we had heard from Taylor Moton, and he was emotional thinking about whether this would be his last year in Carolina. And certainly I was caught off guard. I think a lot of us were caught off guard by the pure raw emotion that he showed, and a reminder that these are human beings. They're not just these gladiators, these people that you recklessly tweet at randomly when things don't work out with your bet or on Sunday with the team winning. These are people. They have feelings, and he has bled. He has sweated. He's cried for this city, for this organization. And to see that happen and to see him get rewarded, like, I am so happy for Timo. And if you somehow missed that moment, here is what Taylor Moton had to say back at the end of July when contemplating whether this would be his final season as a Carolina Panther.
I try not to think about it. I've had some of my best years here in Carolina. I know we haven't won, but the city, being a Panther means a lot to me. So it's crazy. You don't know. Obviously, I want the years to continue, but if it's my last year here, I want it to be my best year. I want it to be the offensive line's best year, the offensive unit's best year, the team's best year. Do whatever I can to help us be our best yet. So I'm a little emotional about it. No. All the blood, all the sweat, all the tears, right? I've been through so much here. Being a Panther means a lot to me. The city means a lot to me. I found my family here, I found my son here, you know? So much sacrifice has gone out on that football field, the practice field, here at Bank of America Stadium. I put so much time, so much heart into it, right? So it's just crazy, you know? But at the end of the day, just focus on finishing this out the right way. If it is, you know, obviously, like I said, I have some good years left, but I have a deep passion for this city, for this organization, for all the guys in the locker room, all the staff, everyone involved in, you know, making this thing go. So,
yeah, just got to be happy for the guy. And I hope that if you weren't already, that you became a huge Taylor Moton fan just based off of that. Talk about, he found his family here, found his kid here, like just that he has put down roots in this city. And no, while he's been a Carolina Panther, there have not been very many bright moments. 2017 was the only time where you truly were happy. Last time you truly were happy as a Panther fan. I'm sure you're happy all the time, but, you know, they weren't winning over the last couple of years. He came into a winner. He wasn't even playing that year as far as being a starter, and he's had to grind through some tough seasons where the offensive line struggled. He's had to battle through things that he's been able to still play through on that offensive line at right tackle, and have to go through clearly what was an emotional offseason for him, not knowing whether he would be a Panther after this season. It's great to see that that has all been figured out and that he will again be the starting right tackle in 2026 and in 2027. A lifetime Carolina Panther. The Panthers actually put out a tweet with a nice video of Taylor. And you know who was actually featured in that? Your boy. I had no idea that was going to happen. So that was very, very nice. A Panther for life. That's what they put out there on their social media. So really cool that they featured my voice in that, breaking down the 129 games, 113 starts he's made during the last 8 seasons as a Panther. And just, he has been the beacon of consistency. He is a Panther for life. And I would guess, and Taylor said it back then, that he feels like he still has a couple more years left in him. I don't know if he would play past the 2027 season. Looking at his age right now, as I'm Googling it here with y'all, he's 31. So he just turned 31 4 days ago. So happy birthday, happy belated birthday for Taylor Moton. And he just got a little bit richer of that 40 mil guaranteed. But yeah, he'll be 32 next year, 33. That may be it for Taylor Moton. And of course, if you did not know this, if you play, you get 10 service years in the NFL, you get the lifetime pension. So he'll be taken care of, his family will be taken care of the rest of their lives with, even despite the money he's made, if he's able to play out the rest of that contract that he just signed this morning. So congrats, Timo, and great for Carolina. He's been a top 25 offensive tackle in 6 out of his last 7 seasons, or his 7 seasons as a starter here in Carolina. I would expect that would be a case again this upcoming fall. There is no concern there. You have that wrapped up. That's one less question that we have to ask ourselves next offseason at the end of the year in January, hopefully in February, of course. We don't have to worry about right tackle. That's Taylor Moton in 26 and in 27. Robert Hunt, he'll still be back. Damian Lewis should still be back next season as well. The only other, and Ike Ekwonu, he's under contract for next year. Just the question will be, what do you do at center? Austin Corbett, if he plays well enough, you would expect that would be an extension there, and then potentially Icky gets his extension next offseason as well. So the offensive line here in Carolina looking like it's going to be the same group again next year as far as the starters go, with Taylor Moton agreeing to a 2-year, $44 million deal with $40 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons in 26 and in 2027, still set to play on the final year of his previous deal here in 2025, and likely going to open up some cap space for the Panthers to do something interesting as the season rolls in. And speaking of that, Adam Thielen, his old friends there in Minnesota are interested in bringing him back, according to multiple reports. And also, if you listen to Locked On Panthers, you already knew that. So let's talk about that here momentarily, but we have to get to one ad here quickly, pay the bills on this emergency episode of Locked On Panthers, and look over at Yahoo Fantasy as my computer is deciding to be super slow right now and not give me the ad read. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On NFL are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Adam Schefter came out with a report on Friday morning that the Minnesota Vikings are interested and have called the Carolina Panthers about trading for Panthers wide receiver and former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, per a league source, with Jordan Addison serving a 3-game suspension due to the DUI, and Jalen Naylor dealing with a hand injury and also hamstring issue there with Justin Jefferson. Thielen could wind up starting opening night for the Vikings if they can complete the trade. Now, here's the thing. Adam Thielen's going to be starting opening night, whether it's in Minnesota or it's in Carolina. So he is in a position where he is going to be in either team's plans. The only question I have as far as from the Vikings perspective is, isn't this like a little short-sighted, y'all? If Justin's going to be good to go, and then eventually Jordan Addison is going to be good. It's not like he's injured. It's just he was stupid, and he got suspended for being stupid when literally, I don't think people don't know this, but every NFL player has access to a free service. They don't have to go and get a Lyft or an Uber or a taxi. They have a free service that will drive them literally anywhere. If you live in Buffalo and you want someone to drive you to New York City, you can have that happen for free $99. So it's inexcusable, especially for an NFL player, to ever be in a situation where they're getting a DUI. And I know plenty of people out there have gone out to a restaurant, had a drink, and felt like they were fine driving home. I'm sure plenty of you watching and listening to this are guilty, and you've gotten away with it. It's just, obviously, it's just not worth it, and it's just even dumber for an NFL player who, again, has a free service to ever be in this situation. But he'll be back and ready to go. So eventually, like week 4, they're going to have their top 2 guys, and I'm guessing that Jalen Naylor is somebody that they like as well. Like, does Adam? If they're going to trade for Adam Thielen, I would assume that he then becomes the 3rd guy behind Jefferson and behind Addison. And that's a really good trio that the Vikings have for their 2nd year, really rookie quarterback, first time starter, JJ McCarthy. So in a way, it's just like, is it a little short-sighted since he's not really a part of your long-term plans? And then like the guy who's going to really be filling in for will be back after 3 weeks. Maybe it'll take until week 5 or week 6 for him to fully be up to speed and in game shape. I don't know, but Minnesota wants a veteran receiver, and you look at Carolina, they have 8 guys right now who they could keep on the roster. And looking back at last night on Thursday, Bryson Tremaine didn't play. And Dave Canales spoke to us after the game last night and said it was general soreness, which is the same reason Taylor McMillan, the 8th overall pick from this past year's draft, did not practice on Monday or Tuesday and did not play last night, among also being with the starters. But you did see that he played more snaps there in the first 2 preseason games than the other starters at receiver for Carolina, namely Adam Thielen and Xavier Legette. So if he is getting the general soreness treatment, makes me feel like he's on the roster. And if that was the case, I was trying to figure it out last night, y'all. If Bryson Tremaine's on the team, obviously Adam Thielen's on the team, Taylor McMillan's on the team, Xavier Legette's on the team. You got Jalen Coker. That's 5. So it's David Moore, it's Hunter Renfrow, and it's Jimmy Horn Jr. battling for the final 6th or 7th spot. So who would be the odd man out? David Moore and Dave Canales, they're tight from their time in Seattle. Dave gave him an opportunity in Tampa a couple of years ago, brought him here to Carolina. He actually played fairly well for what he was asked to do last season, and he's a guy who's a leader in the locker room. He's a veteran in that wide receiver room. Feels like he would have a really good shot. Jimmy Horn Jr., you spent a 6th-round pick on him. Are you ready to move on already? And then Hunter Renfrow was the star of camp the first couple of weeks, then got injured and hasn't necessarily made a ton of noise since then. Certainly didn't do anything in the preseason, not necessarily his fault, considering he had Jack Plummer throwing the ball last night and last week as well once Andy Dalton got injured and he was able to play in a preseason game. But that's 8 guys you could keep, and it makes it easier to just keep the 7 like we've been talking about. If Adam Thielen is sent off to Minnesota for the right price, of course. That's the key. It can't just be just do it. If they can get, like, if they get a 4th rounder or better, you make that trade. If it's anything less than that, then like, oh, okay, we can wait. We can wait, Minnesota. Go talk to other people and see. It would, of course, behoove the Panthers to make that deal because getting something from Adam Thielen, who won't be here next year anyway, in all likelihood, is nice, especially when you have the youth and depth that they have and talent at wide receiver currently. So to me, feels a little short-sighted for Minnesota, but that's what they want to do. It wouldn't be like it's going to be difficult for Adam to move back there. He already has his house there. I don't know this, but I would assume that once he's done here in Carolina, he's going to go back home to Minnesota and live out the rest of his days there, raising his family in the land of lakes, which would make a lot of sense. So we'll see. Dave Canales, I did get off a Zoom with him and the rest of the local media. They had that at 11:30. Get off that Zoom a couple of minutes ago before recording this, and he said he's letting Dan Morgan handle that. And until the conversation really gets real, they're not going to really think about it. And it's not something that he was ever going to answer, obviously. And he didn't really give that much insight into the rest of the guys that are on the roster because, well, you know, it's Dave Canales being a head coach and doing the whole coach speak thing and not giving too much information out about that. It's real, man. And again, if you listen to Locked On Panthers the last couple of days, you already knew that there was interest from Minnesota. I talked to one of my contacts there who covers the Vikings, and they told me that, yes, there is interest from the Vikings perspective. And he's not sure about the Panthers perspective, of course, but when speaking to people last night in the press box, the Panthers are also listening, and it depends on what the compensation will be. Duh. So, yeah, this is a real thing. I would not be surprised by the end of the weekend if Adam Thielen is once again a Minnesota Viking. Like, that should not shock anybody. And the Panthers they've met this morning. They're meeting right now in the afternoon. They'll meet on Saturday, Sunday. No, they're figuring out what they're going to do. And this will make an already difficult decision so much easier if he's not a Panther. So yeah, if they get a 4th rounder, go ahead and make the pick, make the decision, go ahead and send him back home. I wanted to see Adam stick around in Carolina. I want to see him be able to see things through. He came here, sold on the vision that Frank Reich gave him. That lasted 11 games. He did not want to be in that situation. And the fact that he stuck around last year, went through the trials and tribulations of the first 2 weeks of Bryce playing awful, and then coming back off of that hamstring injury, still being a really good player for them and a leader in that locker room. This would be the payoff from the 0-11 disaster that he came into before Frank Reich got fired to having a meltdown week 2 last year because Bryce was terrible, to now, okay, you got the quarterback, you got the offensive line, the defense should be better. This is the time for Carolina to compete. Now, if he goes to Minnesota, well, as long as J.J. McCarthy is like, I guess, as good as Sam Darnold, which is wild to say, he's going to be in a competitive situation and maybe a better situation. Tougher division, certainly, but he'll be in a spot to also contend there and maybe a little bit more of a guarantee, if anything's guaranteed at all, than here in Carolina, where there's still plenty of questions that need to be answered, whether Carolina can actually be a true contender in the NFC South and for a playoff spot this upcoming season in 2025. So yeah, you get a 4th round pick, make the trade, send him back home. I hate that happens. And I told y'all last week, preferably if they're going to move on from Adam Thielen, like he would be the guy to move on from because of just his age being year 12 for him. You have some of the young guys, and you would want over the course of the season, the younger guys to push him down the depth chart and to take over as the top receivers in the room. Like, you would want to trade him 7 weeks into the season or so once you get to the trade deadline, opposed to like right now where there's talent, but still unproven talent and questions that need to be answered with that young group. And I will say this, there is a comparison for anyone who's concerned about the youth of this wide receiver room. That could have you encouraged about what this Carolina Panthers wide receiver group could be this upcoming season. I'll tell you that here momentarily, but let me get this read in from our friends over at BetterHelp. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So I think it would be right and fair to ask, if the Panthers do trade Adam Thielen, are we sure that this room's not too young and that there's not going to be growing pains that negatively impact the Panthers this upcoming season? Like, that is certainly a fair thought and a fair question to ask, and something I have thought about as well. Like, as excited as I am about the youth and talent of this receiving group, it's still youthful and unproven, and we're not so sure. But there's one organization to look at in the NFC that actually did go younger and had a ton of success the last 2 seasons by doing so. It's the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers have been one of the best organizations in the history of the NFL. We understand that. They do a great job with how they run and manage their team. But they decided, we got to get younger at wide receiver, need to bring in some young guys, and let's just depend on them. Go back to 2023. The Packers that year were led by these 6 guys who were all young players. Jaden Reed, the rookie from Michigan State, a second-year player in Romeo Doubs, a rookie in Dontavian Wicks, a second-year player in Christian Watson, and 2 rookie tight ends, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Led them in receiving, with Jordan Love, a third-year player, in his first year as a starting quarterback in Green Bay. And things were a little rough for the Packers midway through that season, there was a lot of questions of, okay, is Jordan Love going to be the guy? I know the Packers waited with Aaron Rodgers. They've done the same thing with Jordan Love, and it worked out with Aaron. Is it going to work with Jordan? But then things turned on. It clicked. They turned it around. They beat the brakes off of the Cowboys there at Jerry World, and they were a Jordan Love, Brett Favre tribute throwaway from playing for a trip to the Super Bowl. Just an insane cross the body throw, ill-advised. Brett Favre as crap that he pulled that evening in San Francisco, where Brock Purdy should have sent him a check because he was about to get ripped for the small hands and all that nonsense people love to talk about on First Take and all those other hot take dumbass shows that are out there on Fox and ESPN. But man, like Jordan Love was cooking that year with some young guys. And look at last year. Yeah, well, the Packers, every time they played a good team, they lost. They still won 11-6 last season with Jaden Reed, with Romeo Doubs, with Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, and Luke Musgrave, again, being the leading receivers, all young players. Look at what Carolina has right now. Tyrell McMillan, rookie. Xavier Legette, second year. Jalen Coker, second year. Bryson Tremaine, second year. Jimmy Horn Jr., rookie. JT Sanders, Mitchell Evans, second year and a rookie, respectively. And the thing that Green Bay didn't have were vets. Hunter Renfrow, former Pro Bowler, he's a vet. David Moore, former number 3 behind DK and Tyler Lockett in Seattle. He's a vet, 7th-year player, would be the oldest man in the room at this point in time. So you have the young talent at tight end and at receiver as receiving options, plus a proven veteran in Hunter Renfrow, who's trying to bounce back off of the ulcerative colitis and the hamstring as well, and be back to who he was before, and then David Moore. So, yes, I think it's fair to question if this is a gamble by going that young when big season. I don't look at anything changing in the NFC South this year where it's going to become impossible for Carolina to be able to contend for it next year and the years to come, unless, Baker Mayfield, I don't think is going to get any that much better. I think he's basically who he's going to be, a really good player. New Orleans, I'm not concerned about that at all. Unless Michael Penix Jr. just becomes like Patrick Mahomes, then you're gonna be fine. You can, and I'm not saying you're not punting on the season, obviously, but it's something that you can decide, all right, we're going to go with the young guys. And if it doesn't work out to the way we hope this year, they all get better, they all get the experience, and then they can be much better the next year around. So, yeah, man, 9-8's not out of the realm of possibility. Bryce Young has more experience than Jordan Love did, and he's also a third-year guy. And we saw what he did at the end of last season. Defensively, they should be much better. It's not crazy to think that they could move on from Adam Thielen via trade, get maybe a 4th-round pick back, and then also go with the youth at receiver and have that 9-8 turnaround like Green Bay had back in 2023, and then that means maybe next season 11-6 and probably win in division, because that's likely good enough in the NFC South. So, yeah, I look at the Packers, what they did. I look at what Carolina's been doing, getting younger, and I see a comparison that could potentially play out if they do indeed move on from Adam Thielen. And one last thing, Diana Rossini, because again, I was on that Zoom call earlier with Dave Canales, and he was saying he's going to let Dan Morgan handle it, and they're not going to think about it too much. Diana Rossini did see Joe Person tweeting about that, saying Diana Rossini, formerly of ESPN, now with The Athletic, Scoop City, her podcast. The Minnesota Vikings have been actively in the market for a veteran wide receiver, making calls around the league to see what fits. Adam Thielen is among the names on their list. I'm told nothing serious has been discussed at this time. That's at this time. She put that out at 11:37 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, August 22nd. We'll see how the rest of the weekend goes, because here's the thing, too. Preseason games tonight, and on Saturday, Sunday, that could be the day. So we'll see whether that happens. And if it does, come right back here to Locked On Panthers, where I told you before Adam Schefter that the Vikings were interested in Adam Thielen. But that's going to wrap up this emergency episode of Locked On Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where on Wednesday, September 3rd, heading into that week 1 matchup in Duval, I am back with the weekly Wednesday mailbag. At me, DM me over on Twitter, at me on Blue Sky. Get those questions and get them in now. I'll even answer them in my DMs, or just answer them if you at me, and we'll get to the real ones that we need to answer come September 3rd. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, as always and forever. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Monday.